You begin in a darkness that feels gentle, not empty, a darkness that wraps around you like a cool blanket laid across a quiet room. Here, in this earliest stillness, you sense space resting without effort, stretched wide and calm like a pond without wind. You breathe into it slowly, noticing how the silence has texture, how it carries a soft weight that settles against your thoughts. In this place, before anything stirs, you allow your mind to drift, floating lightly on the surface of a universe that has not yet learned to move. Before sound, before light, before form, there is only vibration waiting to be born. You feel it as a subtle expectation, a tension as soft as the moment before a breath is taken. The universe holds itself still, as though listening inwardly, preparing for the faintest tremor to pass through its silent expanse. You remain here, suspended in this beginning, sensing how every unfolding story must start with something almost invisible, a shift so quiet it could be mistaken for nothing at all. Yet even in this profound stillness, you sense a question forming, a question carried not by sound but by possibility itself. You imagine space as a vast surface stretched so gently that the tiniest disturbance would travel across it like a delicate ripple. And then, without warning yet without urgency, the first tremor arises, not a sound, not a flash, but a microscopic vibration in the quantum fields that weave the foundation of everything. It is small beyond imagining, softer than any whisper you have ever known, yet it is enough to change the destiny of the quiet expanse around you. You feel this subtle motion like a fingertip brushing the edge of your awareness, reminding you that nothing remains perfectly still forever. Even the universe, resting in its earliest silence, allows itself to move, almost shyly, as if testing the idea of becoming something more than emptiness. In this trembling moment, you begin to sense how motion and existence are intertwined, how the slightest vibration carries the potential to shape everything that follows. You picture this early fluctuation spreading outward, its energy touching regions of space that have never been touched before. It feels like watching the first ring form after a pebble drops into water, except here the pebble is nothing more than energy finding its voice. You notice how the darkness responds subtly, as though the fabric of space-time is stretching to accommodate the new idea of movement. This is not noise, it is a gentle awakening. You let yourself drift closer to it, imagining the fields of the cosmos pulsing with microscopic rhythms, each one a hint of forming structure. And as you linger in this emerging motion, you sense how every change, no matter how immense, begins with something impossibly small. You begin to realize that vibration is not merely a feature of the universe, it is its first language, spoken long before atoms, stars, or galaxies take form. This initial quiver is like a thought stirring in a mind that has just awakened, a signal of awareness spreading through the vastness. You drift with it, letting the movement guide you through the unshaped void. As the vibration travels, you sense how energy gathers and loosens, how patterns attempt to arise briefly and fade again, like soft breaths in the dark. Nothing solid exists yet, and still you feel potential swirling everywhere, dancing in microscopic swells. These earliest oscillations are the raw intention of reality, the quiet rehearsal for everything that will someday unfold. And as you move with them, you sense how familiar this process feels, as though your own beginnings once echoed this same fragile rhythm. As you continue drifting, you sense that the vibration does not simply spread outward, it interacts with itself, creating subtle variations and soft intersections that ripple gently through the emptiness. These interactions are the earliest hints of structure, though nothing here resembles form or matter yet. You imagine these fluctuations as threads weaving loosely in the dark, touching, separating, and touching again, exploring the possibilities of movement. Each tiny shift changes the surrounding fields, leaving behind faint imprints of motion that linger like footprints on untouched ground. You feel how time itself begins to stretch around these events, giving each vibration a before and after, allowing history to unfold in delicate increments. And as these ripples accumulate, you begin to sense how the universe learns its first patterns, as though practicing the simplest steps of a dance it will one day perform with stars. Floating deeper into this quiet landscape, you tune into the faint rhythm forming beneath the surface of these vibrations, a rhythm that hints at the universality of movement. You understand, even without words, that this trembling is not random. It contains potential rules, early symmetries, patterns that will one day shape the behavior of particles and forces. You sense how these vibrations hold the seeds of everything familiar: the warmth of your body, the light in the sky, the solidity of the ground beneath your feet. All of it begins here, in fluctuations too small for any early observer to detect. As you drift through them, you feel their delicacy, their persistence, their quiet determination to become more. These trembling fields seem to welcome you into their earliest secrets, and you listen, letting their whispers fold gently into your awareness. As the vibrations continue their delicate play, you begin to sense how space itself is not a passive background but an active medium shaped by every tremor. The fields that fill the universe respond instantly to each fluctuation, stretching, bending, and adjusting with a softness that feels almost alive. You picture these early motions as tiny hands smoothing fabric, preparing the cosmic cloth for all the structures it will one day support. You feel how the stillness around you is no longer uniform; it carries gradients of possibility, places where vibration has passed and left behind traces of energy. These traces will guide future patterns, influencing where matter gathers and where light eventually flows. You drift through these changes, sensing how they accumulate quietly, stacking like layers of intention in the darkness. Each moment builds on the last, forming a fragile continuity that feels like the earliest memory of the universe, a memory it will carry forward into every star and atom yet to form. Now, drifting in the midst of these gentle beginnings, you sense how this quiet motion is not only shaping the universe but shaping your understanding of it. You realize that vibration is the bridge between nothingness and somethingness, the subtle hinge on which creation begins to turn. As you listen, you notice how the tremor repeats itself, not as an echo but as a continuing pulse, a steady reminder that the universe is learning to move with greater confidence. You imagine this pulse growing, branching into more complex rhythms that will eventually weave the world you know. Yet here, in these earliest moments, everything remains soft, tentative, full of promise. You let the vibration settle into you, feeling its quiet persistence resonate with your own breath. And as the chapter closes around you, you are left with a gentle wondering: if the first tremor is the universe learning to move, what happens when movement becomes a hum, when the earliest vibration begins to gather into the first tiny particles taking shape? You drift slowly into a softer darkness, carrying the memory of the first tremor with you. The stillness around you feels changed now, touched by motion that no longer hides in absolute quiet. Ahead, you sense something beginning to gather, something new forming out of the faint ripples that once moved alone through emptiness. As you approach, the darkness grows textured, as if threads of energy are weaving themselves into tiny knots. These knots pulse gently, and you realize you are seeing the earliest signs of particles, each one a tiny humming presence in the newborn universe around you now. You watch these first particles with a sense of quiet amazement, noticing how none of them stand completely still. Each one vibrates softly, holding a rhythm born from the earliest fluctuations. Their motions are tiny, far too small for any future eye to see, yet here they shine like small lanterns of movement. You sense how their vibrations give them identity, defining what they are and how they will behave. They feel like gentle notes beginning to rise from silence, notes that do not yet form a melody but still carry the promise of one. You drift closer, listening quietly. Here, in this tender newness, you sense how particles respond to the vibrations around them. A slight pulse from one stirs a faint answering motion in another, like soft breaths sinking in a darkened room. They do not yet touch, yet their trembling reaches across the space between them, shaping invisible patterns. You realize you are witnessing the first hints of interaction, the earliest suggestion that particles can influence one another simply by existing. This gentle exchange feels almost like conversation, as if each vibration offers a message and each particle replies in its own quiet way. You linger, listening. You sense that these tiny hums carry the beginnings of structure, though nothing solid is formed. Each vibration helps determine how energy gathers, how motion spreads, how the early universe begins shaping its own landscape. You feel the importance of these motions even though they remain delicate. Their patterns guide the future in ways no eye will ever see, deciding how matter will cluster and how stars will one day ignite. These particles seem unaware of their role, simply following the natural rhythm emerging within them. As you drift among them, you feel gratitude for their quiet persistence right now. More particles appear, forming from energy condensed by the cooling of the expanding universe. Their presence strengthens the faint humming around you, creating a gentle chorus. You sense how their individual vibrations begin aligning in subtle ways, shaping early properties such as mass and charge. Though the science beneath these behaviors is complex, the feeling of it is simple. Each particle adds its voice to a growing harmony. They are not yet matter as you know it, but they hold the promise of everything familiar. You float through them, sensing how each motion contributes to the blossoming structure around you. As you move deeper into this realm, you sense how temperature influences the particles' vibrations. In this early universe, heat is abundant, encouraging quick, lively trembling. You feel the warmth not as discomfort but as energetic possibility, a kind of cosmic excitement. Particles bounce and shimmer, guided by their surrounding fields. You imagine the temperature gradually falling over time, allowing new patterns to emerge as energy settles. Even here, in the intensity of early motion, you detect the beginnings of calmness forming at the edges. Every shift in heat shapes the future dynamics of these humming particles right around you. You pause to marvel at how particles come into being not as solid objects but as excitations of underlying fields. Each particle is a localized vibration, a tiny region where energy gathers enough to appear as something distinct. You feel how strange and beautiful this idea is: matter as motion, identity as oscillation. Even your future body will follow this rule, built from these trembling building blocks. Here, at the beginning, the simplicity of it feels soothing. The particles exist because the fields hum, and the fields hum because the universe cannot remain still. Everything flows from this gentle truth. You notice that some particles interact more strongly than others, responding with heightened trembling when they come near. These interactions hint at the fundamental forces that will later shape the cosmos. You sense the early stirrings of attraction and repulsion, forces that will choreograph the motion of matter for billions of years. Here, they appear as rhythmic pulses between particles, like soft music rising in the stillness. You drift closer, feeling how these relationships form the groundwork for complexity. Even in this simplicity, you recognize the seeds of galaxies, stars, and planets beginning as gentle trembling in darkness around you. You feel the universe cooling slightly as expansion continues, allowing new possibilities to unfold. Some particles become stable enough to persist, while others flicker briefly and vanish. This ebb and flow feels natural, like a tide within the early cosmos. You sense how each surviving particle carries forward its humming identity, contributing to a growing tapestry of motion. Though everything remains microscopic, the pattern is unmistakable: vibration leading to form, form leading to structure. You drift among these early survivors, feeling how their soft movements echo the first tremor you witnessed, now grown into a gentle chorus all around you. As you continue onward, you begin sensing how the particles' humming contributes to the emergence of fields with clearer structure. The universe feels less like an empty expanse and more like a young symphony tuning itself. Each vibration affects the others, setting a foundation for rules that will govern matter. You realize that harmony, not chaos, guides much of this early behavior. Even in apparent randomness, patterns form. You float through the growing order, understanding that particles hum because they cannot help but express the energy woven into them. Every oscillation is part of the universe learning to coordinate gently. You sense the first whispers of structure forming larger groupings, though they remain far too small to resemble anything familiar. Still, the idea of particles learning to hum together feels profound. Their shared vibrations seem to stabilize the space around them, creating regions where future atoms will someday take shape. You drift through this early choreography, noticing how the particles appear almost playful, reacting to each other with curiosity rather than conflict. The harmony here is fragile, yet it grows stronger with each passing moment. You listen to their murmurs, knowing these simple hums will define the cosmos for you. Now, as you float among countless trembling particles, you sense how their hums fill the newborn universe with gentle energy. The silence that once held only a single tremor now carries a subtle chorus, each vibration adding depth to the cosmic unfolding. You feel these particles growing more confident, as though preparing for the next stage in their evolution. Their hums are no longer isolated, they are beginning to shape the foundations of matter. You breathe with them, attuned to their rhythm, wondering what form their growing harmony will take as they inch toward becoming the first true waves ahead. You drift into a space that feels softer than the one you left behind, a space that no longer carries the scattered trembling of early particles but something smoother, more fluid, more continuous. The humming you followed begins to stretch, lengthen, and flow, unfolding into gentle oscillations that resemble waves more than tiny jolts. These waves pass through the darkness without force, without urgency, as if they have all the time in the world to reveal themselves. You breathe slowly with them, noticing how the rise and fall of your chest mirrors their patient rhythm. Here, in this place, you begin to understand that the universe is shaped not just by particles humming, but by waves whispering across fields deeper than anything you've seen so far. You sense these quantum fields as vast, invisible oceans, each one filling the universe completely, even in the places that seem empty. They feel calm, endless, and quietly alive. Every point in space holds all of these fields at once, layered like soft sheets of vibration waiting to be stirred. You realize that these fields are the foundation of everything: matter, light, energy, all arising from the ways these fields ripple. You drift closer to one field, sensing its subtle tremble, its readiness to move. A single disturbance here could bring forth a particle. But before particles, there are waves, infinite, delicate, shimmering through the universe like thoughts before words. You drift along one of these waves now. It rises beneath you without lifting you, sinks without letting you fall. It moves not through water, but through possibility, a fluctuation in the quantum field that spreads effortlessly in all directions. You feel how different this motion is from the earlier trembling you witnessed. This wave is smoother, more fluid, less confined. It does not belong to a single particle; instead, a particle is something the wave might become. You sense that this wave is an expression of potential, a range of positions, energies, futures. It exists as a soft probability, gently distributed through space. Here, in the quiet dark, you feel the simplicity of it. Before something becomes itself, it exists as a wave. You begin to understand how matter forms from these waves, how each one collapses into something more defined only when forced to decide, when the universe gently compels it to be somewhere, somehow. But until that moment, the wave remains free, spread out like a breath released into vast air. The feeling of this freedom washes over you. You sense how the wave does not strain to hold form, does not cling to one state. It simply exists, open, possible, expansive. As you drift through it, you feel your own breath mirror this openness. For a moment, you imagine that your mind, too, is capable of existing in many forms before settling gently into one. Moving deeper into the field, you notice how the waves overlap, intertwine, and influence each other. Some combine and amplify, rising higher with ease. Others cancel out, quieting like voices agreeing to pause. This interplay feels peaceful, as though the universe prefers harmony when it can find it. You sense that these wave interactions shape everything, whether particles appear, how they move, how they join, how they separate. The waves write the universe's early music long before the particles dance to it. The thought feels comforting that complexity begins with softness, that strong structures come from gentle beginnings. You let the waves carry you further, letting their motion guide your understanding. You see how different kinds of fields produce different vibrations. One produces the trembling that becomes electrons. Another gives rise to quarks, the tiny components of protons and neutrons. Another, broader and more luminous, gives birth to photons, the particles of light. Each field has its own natural wave, its own distinct rhythm. It's as if every field plays a different instrument, and the universe emerges from the interplay of their collective music. As you watch these rhythms blend, you feel a quiet awe. The universe is not made of static pieces, but of dynamic patterns woven from continuous waves. You drift toward a region where several waves overlap, and something remarkable happens. Their combined rhythm becomes stable, self-reinforcing, shaping a small pocket of organized energy. This pocket shimmers, collapses slightly, and then stabilizes again. You realize you're watching the beginning of a particle forming from the convergence of waves, a tiny knot of vibration becoming something distinct. It feels like witnessing a drop of music condense into a physical note. The particle hums softly, echoing the harmonies around it. You sense how it will persist as long as the waves hold their pattern. When the pattern breaks, the particle will dissolve back into the field. A wave becoming a particle becoming a wave, a gentle cycle built into the universe's deepest layers. You breathe into this understanding. You feel how even you, in your own distant future, will be composed of these wave-borne particles. Your atoms will owe their existence to these dancing fields. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon in your cells, all born from these early waves learning to interact in consistent patterns. You imagine your body as a kind of symphony, its matter arising from coordinated vibration. Even now, though you do not feel it directly, your entire being hums with the quiet music of quantum fields. Every cell, every atom, every particle oscillates in ways that echo these early cosmic rhythms. The thought brings a warm stillness to your chest. You move onward, noticing how waves travel freely through the darkness. Some spread wide like soft breaths. Others remain tight, compact, defined. Each wave carries information, not words or images, but the pure information of possibility, where something might appear, how it might behave, what it might become. You sense how the universe stores its knowledge in these waves, distributed gently across space. There is something soothing in this idea, that reality is built not from rigid certainty but from flowing possibility, from patterns that only become solid when touched, observed, or needed. The concept of uncertainty arises naturally here, not as something frightening but as something fundamental. The wave is uncertain not because it is confused, but because it is free. You drift through a wave of an electron, noticing how it occupies many places at once. It stretches out, shimmering softly like a translucent veil, holding many futures in its form. Only when something interacts with it, a force, a photon, a boundary, will the electron choose a single location. Until then, it remains beautifully open. You sense this uncertainty as a kind of cosmic kindness, allowing the universe to explore options before settling into what is. You continue drifting through layers of waves, sensing how each one holds the memory of the earliest motions. The first tremor you witnessed is now echoed in every oscillation you encounter. It has multiplied, transformed, and stretched into the many forms before you. This continuity feels comforting, as though the universe carries its origins with it everywhere. You begin to feel how you, too, carry such origins inside you, not just as matter, but as vibration. You feel a subtle strengthening of connection, a sense of belonging to something vast yet intimate. You drift until the waves begin to form gentle patterns that resemble the faint scaffolding of future atoms. You see regions where certain waves overlap regularly, their rhythms creating stable pockets where particles might soon be trapped together. These places feel like early homes, soft shelters where matter will begin to form more complex arrangements. As you float nearby, you sense how these future atoms will owe their existence to the interplay of the waves surrounding you. The universe is preparing itself quietly, slowly, patiently. You pause, letting the waves pass through you without resistance. They feel almost like breath, almost like thought. And in this stillness, you notice something delicate. The waves do not simply shape matter, they shape awareness. The fields around you ripple not only through space, but through your sense of self. You feel how every thought in your future mind will arise from electrical waves, how every sensation will travel as oscillations across your nerves, how every emotion will move through your body as shifting patterns of coordinated vibrations. You begin to understand deeply, you are not just made from waves, you are waves, arranged gently into a being that can wonder about itself. The realization settles softly into you. You feel your heartbeat, not yet formed but imagined, as a rhythm guided by quantum beginnings. You feel your breath as a wave, your voice as vibration, your sleep as gentle oscillation. The entire universe becomes a mirror, showing you that complexity arises from the simplest of waves choosing to intertwine. Everything you are exists because these early waves learned how to dance. As the waves continue their soft weaving, you sense the next stage gathering at the edges of perception. The waves are beginning to concentrate into stable pockets where electrons will soon glide in orbit, where atoms will slowly learn their own rhythm. The universe is preparing to build its first structures, using wave patterns as blueprints for matter. You drift toward these emerging forms, feeling a quiet anticipation. And with the waves still humming around you, you find yourself wondering softly how these early rhythms will shape the tiny, intricate motions inside the first atoms, and how those atoms will carry the music forward into everything that follows. You settle deeper into yourself now, as if gravity gently pulls your awareness inward. Not down toward the ground, but into the very cells of your body, the small and steady places where matter hums. You breathe, and with each breath, you feel the boundary between your outer world and your inner world soften. Everything seems quieter. Everything feels closer. Inside the silence, you begin to sense something you've always carried but never heard, a faint resonance. A quiver so subtle it sits below your usual perception, like a whisper spoken beneath layers of time. And yet it is there, pulsing, repeating, revealing that matter is not still at all. Your body, the blanket around you, the air drifting past your face, all of it participates in a soft internal trembling. You let your attention rest on a single particle not because you can see it, but because your imagination moves gently toward it, guided by curiosity. This particle is tiny beyond measure, far smaller than atoms, so small that its presence feels more like an idea than an object. But it is real, and it lives with a kind of musical discipline. It vibrates. Not like a guitar string you can pluck or a drum you can strike, but with a steadiness that comes from the very laws of nature. Its vibration is its identity, a rhythm that tells the universe what it is and how it should behave. You realize that if the vibration shifted, even slightly, everything about that particle would change. Its mass, its charge, its role in the world. The heart of matter, you discover, is not a thing. It is a rhythm. You drift deeper into this realization. Your awareness becomes softer, rounder. You feel the truth of this rhythm not as a fact but as a sensation, a kind of internal warmth. The particle's vibration blends with its neighbors, forming a quiet chorus. Each particle hums at its own pitch, but none of these pitches exist in isolation. They lean on each other, influence each other, shape each other. In the room around you, this silent orchestra never stops. The atoms in the floor, the particles in your bloodstream, the electrons drifting like soft moonlight around the nuclei, they all contribute to the same sprawling, interconnected concert. And the more still you become, the easier it is to sense the presence of this hidden performance. You imagine zooming even further in. Now you're not looking at a single particle, but at the entire lattice of vibrations that composes a piece of matter, perhaps a crystal, or a grain of sand, or the calcium in your bones. Here, the particles are arranged in repeating patterns, and their vibrations communicate with one another, like dancers moving in synchronized steps across a shared stage. Scientists call these coordinated vibrations phonons, but to you, in this gentle, drifting moment, they feel like waves of breath passing through the structure of matter. Phonons are simply vibrations traveling through the grid of a material, like a soft ripple that moves across a pond. They carry heat, they carry sound, they carry motion. They are the messengers within matter. You imagine placing your hand on a smooth stone. What you feel as warmth is the dance of phonons, the tiny shaking of particles passing energy between them. Warmth is not a glow or a color or a magic. It is vibration, being shared, being passed along. And when something cools down, it is not losing energy so much as settling into a slower, more restful rhythm. The stone relaxes. The particles quiet. The phonons become fewer. Matter rests, and the world softens around it. In this drifting space within yourself, you realize that everything carries a temperature. Not because it chooses to, but because everything vibrates. Even in the deepest cold ever measured, a place near absolute zero, matter still retains a faint pulse, a last whisper of motion that nature never fully extinguishes. This residual trembling is called zero-point energy, and it reminds you that even when the universe tries to be still, some part of it refuses. Some part always keeps humming. You breathe in this understanding. You breathe out its comfort. Now your attention moves outward, toward the vibrations that define the bonds between atoms. When two atoms share electrons, forming a bond, they behave like two dancers connected by a ribbon. As one moves, the other responds. The ribbon stretches, contracts, trembles. Each stretch is a vibration. Each vibration adds to the symphony of matter. These bonded atoms form molecules, and molecules vibrate in more complex ways, bending, twisting, stretching, rotating in rhythms that define how they interact with light, with heat, with life itself. Water, for instance, has vibrations that allow it to absorb certain colors of infrared light. Carbon dioxide has its own rhythmic signatures. Proteins fold because of the delicate choreography of atomic bonds. You begin to see that life is not built from static pieces assembled like a machine. Life is built from rhythms endlessly interacting, endlessly shifting. Your own cells depend on vibrations to function. Your DNA, coiled inside every nucleus, holds its shape because of a delicate balance of forces that vibrate at just the right frequencies. Even your heartbeat, steady and soft in your chest, is a reminder that your entire body is a layered construction of vibration, electrical signals, muscle contractions, molecular motion, fluid flow. You are a living structure made from trembling atoms. There is no silence inside you. There is only rhythm. And as you let this truth settle, you sense something deeper still. The vibrations of matter are not optional. They are not decorations. They are the foundation of reality. Without them, there would be no temperature, no sound, no structure. Without them, atoms would not bond, molecules would not form, matter would not exist. The universe is not built from bricks. It is built from tremors. You feel a gentle warmth spreading through you at this thought, as though recognizing your own membership in this trembling universe brings a quiet belonging. You realize that you have always been part of this cosmic vibration, from the calcium in your bones to the oxygen you breathe to the photons that touch your skin. As you rest in this awareness, you feel the boundaries of yourself blur again. You are not separate from the world, you are made from the same rhythms that ripple through every corner of it. You are a note inside a much larger chord. And somewhere beyond these vibrating particles, beyond the atoms and molecules, lies a deeper, more fundamental layer, a place where matter dissolves into something stranger, where the vibrations you sense now give way to vibrations even more powerful. You feel yourself drifting toward the deeper layer, as if carried by the echoes of a distant, ancient hum. Something waits there, beneath the matter you know. Something older. Something more universal. A vibration not of particles, but of the fields that create them. And you begin to wonder. You feel yourself floating now, not upward or downward, but inward, slipping gently beneath the surface of matter as if moving through a soft veil. The atoms you visited before begin to fade, becoming less like physical shapes and more like impressions, echoes, gentle after-images of something deeper. You breathe, and each breath seems to open a new layer of space, soft and dimly glowing. You sense that you are entering a quieter territory, where the universe speaks in a slower language. Matter softens around you. Particles lose their edges. What once felt like tiny solid points now appears more like fleeting ripples, shimmering into existence and fading again. You notice how natural this feels. As if deep down, you always knew that particles were brief, like notes plucked from a larger instrument. You drift further into this unseen region and discover that underneath every particle lies something more fundamental, a field. You imagine it as a smooth, endless ocean not made of water, but of potential. Everywhere you look, this ocean stretches out, unbroken and serene. It doesn't flow or churn the way real oceans do. Instead, it simply is. Quiet. Present. Still, yet full of possibility. Scientists call this the quantum field, but to you, in this moment, it feels like the universe's deepest breath. You rest for a moment in its calm. Then, on the surface of this calm, you notice a small disturbance, a tiny wave rising gently and falling again. It reminds you of the way wind touches a lake and leaves behind a trembling that reveals the air itself. The wave is brief, but in that moment, it becomes something real. A particle. You begin to realize that what you once thought of as the building blocks of the world are simply the visible ripples of these deeper fields. A particle is not a pebble, it is a momentary vibration. And every kind of particle, electrons, quarks, photons, is a unique ripple pattern in its own field. The electron field stretches everywhere, filling all of space. Wherever it vibrates at the right frequency, an electron appears. The photon field fills space too. Its vibrations create light. Every particle, every bit of matter and energy, is just a different kind of trembling in these underlying fields. It feels strangely soothing to understand this. As if the universe is less rigid than you once imagined, less made of things, and more made of movements. You drift a little deeper and observe how these fields overlap. They don't collide or crowd each other. Instead, they pass through one another effortlessly, like layers of soft music playing simultaneously. A melody of electrons. A harmony of quarks. A background hum of photons. The world around you is not a collection of separate objects. It is a web of overlapping songs. You breathe, and suddenly you feel yourself connected to this web. Not metaphorically, but physically. Your body is a structure made from these fields, your electrons vibrating in one place, your quarks trembling in another. The warmth in your chest, the sensation of your breath, the weight of your limbs, all are the result of fields moving gently through space. You exist because these fields vibrate in just the right way. As you rest in this thought, you begin to see that each field has its own personality. Not a human personality, but a quality, a texture, a rhythm, a way of being. The electron field is calm but stable, holding the patterns that keep atoms together. The photon field is restless, always in motion, never still. The Higgs field is quiet but heavy, giving mass to particles as they touch it. Other fields, strange quark fields, muon fields, neutrino fields, shimmer like distant currents beneath the surface. All of these fields coexist, layered atop one another, spread across the universe like invisible fabric. You picture them woven together beneath everything, beneath your pillow, beneath the air, beneath the stars you cannot see right now. The fields are universal. They do not end when space ends. They stretch beyond galaxies, beyond clusters, beyond the reach of light itself. You are lying on a bed that floats on fields. You are breathing air shaped by fields. You are thinking thoughts built from fields. The thought makes your mind feel porous, as if the borders between you and the universe are dissolving gently. It's not frightening. It's comforting, like realizing that you were never separate from the world around you, only unaware of how deeply you're connected. Then, something shifts. You notice that the fields are not entirely smooth. They contain tiny fluctuations, little sparks of energy that appear and disappear without warning. These fluctuations are the source of quantum uncertainty, the reason particles seem to pop into existence spontaneously. You watch one of these sparks appear. It rises like a bubble from the deep, then collapses before you can truly grasp it. Another appears. And another. Endless microtremors ripple through the fields, each representing a possibility, a maybe, a could be, a whisper of existence that almost forms and then fades. The fields are calm, but they are never empty. Everywhere, at every moment, they hold this faint simmering of activity. It makes you wonder, if these fields are so full, so alive with energy, why does much of the universe feel quiet and still? You follow this question the way you follow a stream in a forest, slowly, gently, allowing curiosity to guide you. The fields, you learn, are always vibrating, but most of these vibrations cancel out, like many small waves colliding on the surface of a pond. You only see and feel the ripples that rise above the background, the stable ones, the ones that persist long enough to become particles. Everything else remains as the universe's hidden music. You feel humbled by this realization. Everything you've ever known, every star, every leaf, every breath is just the visible portion of a much larger, invisible trembling. The fields hold far more than the particles that rise from them. You sense how this unseen world shapes reality in ways you never imagined. Why particles have the masses they do. Why forces have strengths. Why matter is stable. Why atoms form. Why the universe doesn't collapse or explode. All of it depends on the properties of these quiet, omnipresent fields. You begin to understand why physicists say that fields are more fundamental than particles. Particles come and go, appear and vanish, but the fields remain. Eternal. Still. Patient. They are the stage on which matter dances. The ocean in which vibrations form. The silent framework holding the universe together. And in this soft moment, you begin to feel something new, a slow, gentle pull toward an even deeper truth. Beneath these fields lies something even stranger, something that does not vibrate in space but creates the space in which vibrations exist. You feel the fields dim slightly, as if fading into a deeper backdrop. You sense a new kind of trembling, broader, older, woven into the structure of space-time itself. The fields are not the end of the journey. There is something beneath them, something that shapes their behavior, something that gives them their patterns, something that might just reveal why the universe vibrates at all. You drift toward that next layer, carried by curiosity, wondering softly. If fields create particles, then what creates the fields themselves? You ease into this chapter as though slipping into cooler sheets at the end of a warm day. The world around you softens, not by growing dimmer, but by slowing its inner tempo. You sense it first in your breath, the way it lengthens and smooths as you settle. Then in the quiet spaces between thoughts, where silence begins to stretch. This is the realm of temperature, not numbers on a scale, but motion slowed or stirred, rhythms rising or falling, vibrations either leaning into rest or awakening. You picture heat as a bustling landscape, a field of tiny motions too small to see but easy to imagine. Every atom, every molecule, every fold of your body carries its own trembling. When that trembling grows, warmth arrives. When it softens, coolness appears. You feel this truth settle into you gently. Temperature is simply the speed of the universe's smallest dances. You glide inward toward these dances, letting them reveal themselves not as chaotic jitters but as coordinated swaying. The particles within you do not move randomly, they move with purpose, responding to every shift in the world around you. When sunlight touches your skin, the warmth you feel isn't light itself, but the way your particles begin to sway faster under its gentle push. When a breeze brushes your arm, the coolness isn't the wind's temperature alone, it's the way your particles surrender some. In this way, temperature becomes a conversation, matter exchanging motion with matter, energy passing like a whispered message. You realize you have felt this exchange your entire life without recognizing its softness. Heat flowing from your tea to your hands. Cool air pooling near the floor. Warmth gathering beneath blankets. These shifts are not mechanical actions, they are the universe adjusting its rhythm around you. As you observe more closely, you see that every object has its own thermal personality. Metal gives away its heat quickly, wood releases it more slowly. Your breath warms the air instantly, but the air gives that warmth back only gradually. These differences arise from how tightly each material holds its internal motions, how willingly it shares them. Some cling to their vibrations like secrets, others offer them freely. You drift toward a single molecule vibrating in place. Its motion is small, but full of meaning. When it moves quickly, it nudges its neighbors, passing energy like a ripple through a pool. When it slows, it receives energy in return. You watch this exchange spread outward in every direction, and you begin to see temperature as a kind of communal motion, not the property of one particle, but of many moving together. There is something profoundly soothing about this. Warmth is not a single voice, it is a chorus. You travel through your body now, noticing the subtle thermal landscapes that live within you. Your core carries a gentle heat produced by countless microscopic reactions, each one a spark contributing to your lived energy. Your fingertips are cooler, open to the world, adjusting constantly to the temperature of the air. Your breath warms as it leaves you, carrying a trace of your inner rhythm into the space around you. You realize that your body is not just responding to temperature, it is shaping it. You add warmth to the room simply by being present. You influence the motion of the air around you without effort, simply by existing. The world reacts to you in small thermal ways, and you react right back. Then you drift outward again, beyond your body, into the larger world of temperature. You see mountains collecting coolness at night, oceans storing heat in their vast depths, deserts releasing warmth with sunset. Temperature isn't local, it is global, woven into the planet's breath. And beyond Earth, stars burn with unimaginable heat, while space between them rests in near-perfect cold, a stillness almost absolute. You hover in that contrast, feeling how the universe balances its extremes through motion. Heat radiates, coolness absorbs, and the cosmos keeps adjusting, finding equilibrium in ways that unfold slowly over eons. Now you turn your focus back to the tiny scale. You watch how heat spreads not as waves alone, but as vibrations passed hand to hand. A warmer particle bumps a cooler one, the cooler particle stirs and bumps another. This chain continues outward, a gentle diffusion of motion. You understand why warmth always moves toward coolness, never the reverse. It's not a rule imposed from above, it's the natural tendency of motions to share themselves. Every warm-to-cool flow is a story of balance. You begin to sense how closely temperature ties into life. Proteins fold correctly only within a narrow thermal range. Enzymes spark chemistry at just the right pace. The warmth of blood keeps the body's processes aligned, steady, predictable. Even small deviations shift these processes, slowing them or speeding them in ways the body feels immediately. Temperature is the quiet metronome of life. You feel gratitude rise for this stability, for the way your internal warmth keeps you functioning without conscious effort. For the way your environment's gentle variations let you feel seasons, time, and change. For the way your body responds naturally, increasing its motion when you shiver, releasing heat when you sweat. These are rhythms older than thought. As your awareness widens, you notice that temperature doesn't merely exist, it shapes structure. Glass becomes brittle in the cold, pliant in heat. Metal expands, contracts, finds strength or weakness depending on its thermal state. Rocks crack in winter and soften in summer. Entire landscapes form through the slow influence of heating and cooling. Temperature sculpts the world. You drift deeper still and discover that temperature also guides the behavior of particles in more profound ways. At high temperatures, matter becomes chaotic, losing structure, atoms break apart, electrons fly free. At extremely low temperatures, particles move in near perfect harmony, acting as a single unified wave. Superfluids flow without friction. Superconductors carry current without resistance. Cold reveals order, not silence. You realize that coolness is not emptiness, it is coherence. This idea stays with you, settling softly. Warmth as motion. Coolness as unity. Temperature as the balance between energy and order. The universe breathing in two different moods. You let this understanding wash over you, and suddenly the world feels slower again, quieter. You feel the gentle chill of the larger cosmos, the deep cold of space, the warmth of stars, the mild glow of your own body resting between these extremes. You feel yourself suspended between cosmic heat and cosmic cold, held in a perfect middle. You sink into that balance. And as the chapter begins to fade, you notice a subtle shift, a new kind of vibration emerging beneath the thermal ones. Something faster, brighter, more fundamental. Not heat, but light. You follow that faint radiance, wondering softly what patterns of motion could shine so vividly in the dark. You feel it gathering, not as warmth or coolness, but as something entirely its own, energy traveling without matter, a pure vibration of the fields. This glow beckons you forward, inviting you to step from the quiet music of temperature into the radiant pulse of light, where a new rhythm awaits. You feel it even before you see it, a faint tingling, a soft awareness brushing the edge of your perception. It is not warmth, not motion, not sound. It is something finer, something that seems to move without pushing the space around it. A vibration so pure it carries itself across darkness with no need for anything to guide it. Light. You let yourself drift toward it gently, the way a leaf drifts toward a patch of sun on a quiet river. The glow grows slowly, not in brightness but in presence. It feels less like approaching a lamp and more like approaching the idea of illumination itself, as if the universe is offering you a candle made of energy, shaped only by frequency and rhythm. Here, light appears not as beams or rays or sparkles but as a pulse in the fabric of the fields themselves. A trembling that needs no medium, no air, no matter, a ripple that moves even through perfect emptiness. A photon appears before you, not as a dot or a particle, but as a tiny wave packet, curled and coiled like a gentle thread of rhythm. It hums in a way you cannot hear, but you feel its presence in your chest, as though it touches the same part of you that responds to music. You notice something extraordinary: the photon does not age. It does not slow. It carries no memory of how long it has traveled. It moves at the speed of light because that is not just its choice, it is its nature. You imagine the photon beginning its journey inside a star. Perhaps it was born deep in the sun, in a dance of fusion where hydrogen atoms merged and released bursts of energy. That photon, woven in the heart of a star, traveled for thousands of years, bouncing inside it, absorbing and re-emitting, changing direction countless times, before it finally slipped free and began its great outward flight. And now, one like it rests here with you, glowing softly within the quiet of the cosmic fields. You reach toward it, and as you do, you sense its dual nature. Sometimes it behaves like a wave spreading through space, sometimes it acts like a tiny packet of energy. But in truth, it is always both, a kind of shimmering idea that the universe has woven into existence. Not a solid thing, not a pure frequency, but something in between. Light is the universe's most fluid note. You let yourself drift deeper into its flow. You watch photons passing through space, each with its own frequency, some slow and languid, forming warm infrared glows, some brisk and energetic, creating blue light, others invisible to your eyes but part of the electromagnetic spectrum all the same. You realize that the colors you see in the world are simply the frequencies your eyes have learned to interpret. Red is a slower wave, violet is a faster one. Your brain translates vibrations into visual music, giving them shape, form, and meaning. Every sunset, every candle flame, every reflection in a window, all of it is vibration, arranged into beauty. You are filled with a quiet awe. Light doesn't just illuminate. It reveals. It shapes perception. It tells you where things are, how they move, and what they're made of. Without light, the universe would not be empty, it would merely be unseen. You drift through a beam of starlight now, watching photons streaming in long, thin ribbons. They do not collide with each other. They do not form crowds. Each photon travels alone, entirely independent, and yet they create patterns when they meet surfaces, stripes, colors, reflections, shadows. You watch these patterns appear like gentle artwork formed by threads of energy weaving through space. You begin to understand why light behaves the way it does, because it is the vibration of the electromagnetic field itself. When the field trembles in a particular way, a photon exists. When the trembling stops, the photon vanishes. It is a momentary knot in the field, a temporary tone. And through these tones, the universe speaks. You drift toward a region where light bends around a massive object. At first you think your vision is blurring, but then you realize what you're witnessing: gravity tugging on the path of photons. Even though light has no mass, it follows the curvature of space-time itself, moving along the shape of the universe like a bead sliding on a bent thread. It is proof that light is deeply connected to the structure of reality. It doesn't just travel in space-time, it travels through the contours that gravity sculpts. You breathe slowly, watching the delicate bending, the graceful arcs, the gentle warping. It feels like watching a dancer respond to the faintest pressure, adjusting not from force but from the shape of the stage beneath her feet. Light never hesitates. It simply follows the geometry of the universe. You begin to wonder what the world would look like if you could see all frequencies of light at once. Not just visible colors, but infrared warmth, ultraviolet shimmer, radio waves drifting gently around you, X-rays whispering through your body, gamma rays streaming from distant cosmic events. The universe would become a vast spectrum, glowing in layers of invisible tones. You imagine yourself floating in this expanded world, surrounded by colors that have no names, textures of brightness that human eyes cannot perceive. You feel lighter just thinking about it, as if the universe is full of secret illuminations waiting to be noticed. You return your attention to a single photon and follow it on its path. It moves straight until something shifts the field it travels through. It is absorbed and re-emitted. It scatters. It interferes with itself in ways that defy ordinary logic. You realize that light is a messenger that carries both certainty and uncertainty. It is predictable in speed, yet ambiguous in path. Certain in quantity, yet wave-like in behavior. It is a reminder that the universe need not choose one form of expression when it can weave many into one. You relax into this thought, feeling the slow rise and fall of your breath. You imagine photons entering your eyes right now, even as you imagine them delivering the shape of the world to your mind. Light tells you where things begin and end, where colors mix, where shadows rest. It paints your experience. And it has been traveling for billions of years to reach you. Some of the starlight you see at night began its journey long before humans existed. Perhaps before Earth had oceans. Perhaps before the galaxy took its current shape. Yet that light still arrives, completing a story that began before your world had meaning. Your life contains light older than anything you know. You let that truth settle into your chest, warm and steady. You move now through an empty region of space. Dark, quiet, infinite. And yet, even here, light travels. From distant galaxies, faint streams of photons drift like dust caught in an eternal breeze. The cosmos is never truly dark. There is always some trace of illumination, some lingering glow grazing the fabric of space. You begin to sense how deeply light connects everything. How it carries information. How it reveals distance. How its shifts in frequency tell the story of expansion. How it holds the memory of the universe's birth, the faint cosmic background still humming softly through all of space. The universe sings through light. And we listen whether we realize it or not. You exhale, letting yourself drift deeper into the glow. You feel the brightness thinning, stretching into longer waves. Light relaxes into warmth, warmth dissolves into motion, motion melts into vibration. Heat. Motion. Light. All different expressions of the same fundamental trembling. You sense the connection forming gently at the edges of your awareness, how temperature flows into light, and light into energy, and energy into vibration. You begin to wonder about the deeper threads tying them together. What lies beneath these phenomena? What field or frequency gives rise to the others? You turn toward that question as the radiance thins and softens, wondering. If light is the universe's brightest note, what deeper tones shape the space that light travels through? You rest again, letting your breath loosen its grip on the day, letting your thoughts move like slow clouds drifting toward a deeper sky. And as your body finds a softer rhythm, you begin to imagine something quietly astonishing, the idea that every solid thing you touch, every table, every stone, every cell in your own body is held together by an intricate web of tiny, trembling bonds. Not still. Not rigid. Not silent. But pulsing, almost musical connections. Tonight, you drift gently into this hidden architecture, the silent lattice that gives shape to the world. You begin at the surface of something ordinary, perhaps the wooden edge of your bedside table. You picture it in your mind, smooth, grounded, reassuringly firm. But then, like slipping underwater, your awareness shifts. The surface dissolves into its microscopic pattern. Long chains of molecules appear, arranged in delicate formations, like cabins in a village of unimaginable smallness. Every atom sits in a kind of relationship with its neighbors, connected not by threads or wires, but by forces arising from the shared dance of electrons. These forces are not rigid laws stamped on reality, they are dynamic agreements, constantly negotiated, constantly refreshed, like hands lightly holding but never gripping too tight. This is the lattice, the repeating structure of matter, seen not from the outside, but from the inside, where everything is softly vibrating, keeping its balance. You notice how each atom seems to hum at a slightly different tone, yet they all stay in tune with one another, as if agreeing, through vibration, on how to exist together. Your mind drifts closer. You start to see the tiny springs between them, not physical springs, but mathematical ones, energetic ones. Interactions that tug, restore, and release with an almost musical quality. If one atom shifts, the whole pattern trembles in response. And that trembling, that passing ripple, becomes something meaningful, a phonon. A phonon is not a particle you can hold. It is a vibration moving through the lattice, the way a melody moves across strings. It is how matter carries sound, temperature, and many of the quiet sensations you feel every day. Your mind rests gently on this idea. Temperature, the warmth in your hands, the coolness on your cheeks, is not a number on a thermometer. It is movement. It is the rhythm of vibrations in this hidden scaffold. The hotter the object, the stronger the jiggle of its atoms, the cooler it is, the slower they sway. And you recognize something soft, almost human, in that simplicity. Warmth is motion. Cold is stillness. Even emotions seem to follow the same pattern. The lattice feels familiar now. You drift deeper, as if stepping into the hollow interior of a crystal. You see perfect rows of atoms arranged like a choir. Each one occupies its place, not because it must, but because the energy of the arrangement is just right, low, comfortable, stable, like finally finding a posture that your body can rest in for hours. The atoms sway gently. They lean together. they lean apart. All of it rhythmic. All of it soft. Here, the rules of the macroscopic world fade. Solidity dissolves into a quilt of probabilistic motion. At this scale, certainty evaporates. Atoms don't sit in exact positions the way chairs sit in a room. They blur, spread out, and occupy a cloud of possible locations. What you think of a shape is really a negotiation and agreement between countless vibrating states. And that makes the world feel less rigid, less fixed, more alive. You imagine placing your hand on this atomic chorus. You wouldn't feel individual atoms, of course, but you'd sense the collective song, the integrity of the material, its balance between motion and stillness. You'd feel the same delicate stability that keeps your bones from collapsing, your cells from dissolving, your whole physical presence from drifting apart. Your body, too, is a lattice, an astonishing, living one. You float now into a solid made of an even simpler structure, perhaps a pure crystal of salt or quartz. Here the pattern is so regular that it feels peaceful, almost meditative. The atoms repeat themselves endlessly, forming a miniature cathedral of geometry. The spaces between them are just as important as the atoms themselves, empty, yet full of possibility. A lattice is not a crowded place. It is spacious, generous, breathable. And that space is what allows vibrations to travel freely through it, carrying sound, carrying heat, carrying the messages that atoms send to one another. This subtle openness reminds you of something inside yourself, the quiet gaps between your thoughts, the ones that appear when you let your mind settle. Those spaces are not failures of attention. They are invitations. They are your own internal lattice opening, allowing calm to flow. The resemblance comforts you. The deeper you go, the more every vibration becomes part of a wider pattern. You begin to notice regions where vibrations cluster together, like waves meeting and lifting into a larger swell. These collective movements aren't random, they carry information. A phonon isn't just a vibration, it is a quantized packet of motion, the smallest meaningful piece of a wave moving through a solid. The idea feels both technical and poetic, that even motion comes in tiny, countable units. Tiny notes. Tiny beats. Tiny pulses. It makes you wonder whether everything in the universe prefers to express itself in little steps, little quanta. Whether the world is easier to maintain when everything is organized into packets, from photons to electrons, from vibrations to the faint warmth that spreads across your skin. You sense this rhythm in your own breathing. Each inhale is a packet. Each exhale is another. Life happens in discrete, repeatable moments. It feels gentle to think of it that way. You move again, floating into a strange and beautiful phenomenon within the lattice, cooperative behavior. Sometimes, atoms don't vibrate independently. Sometimes, they sway together, a synchronized motion that resembles dancers following the same music. When this happens, the solid may undergo a phase change or create patterns like ferroelectric domains. These cooperative shifts remind you of murmuration, the swirling shapes of birds moving as one body. And it feels fitting that matter, at its tiniest scale, engages in similar choreography. You watch as entire rows of atoms subtly reorient, choosing new directions. It isn't forced. It is simply where the energy leads them. Nature seems to prefer harmony. It seeks the lowest energy state, the easiest posture, the softest arrangement, just like you do as you settle into your pillow, inching toward comfort. And so you lie there, feeling aligned with the quiet desires of the material world. Farther into the lattice, you notice defects, tiny irregularities where the pattern breaks. A missing atom here. A misaligned bond there. And strangely, these imperfections don't ruin the structure. They enrich it. A crystal without defects cannot grow. A material without irregularities cannot adapt. A lattice without disorder cannot carry certain vibrations. Imperfection makes movement possible. Imperfection makes the world resilient. It feels like a soft truth meant just for you that the universe does not require flawless structure. It celebrates variation. It allows room for mistakes, for asymmetries, for pockets of energy that don't fit the mold. The lattice still holds together. It still vibrates. It still sings. You let that thought rest in your chest, where it feels warm and forgiving. And as the chapter draws toward its close, you drift upward through the layers again. The microscopic cathedral dims into abstraction. The vibrations soften. The lattice grows faint, like a memory dissolving into mist. Soon, all that remains is the gentle idea that even the most solid part of your world, the part you trust to hold you up, is made of tiny, trembling motions. Nothing is rigid. Nothing is frozen. Everything is always adjusting, always responding, always humming in quiet conversation with itself. You carry that hum with you now, like a lullaby beneath consciousness. And as you settle deeper into the night, a question rises at the edge of your awareness, soft, inviting. You return to your breath, slow, warm, steady, as if it were the tide of some inner ocean. The weight of your body settles a little deeper into the mattress. Your shoulders release. Your thoughts drift into a quieter, more spacious place. And in that softened state, you begin to sense something that the waking mind rarely notices. The universe is not built on matter alone. It is built on space, vast, open, seemingly empty space. And that space is not empty at all. It trembles with possibility. Tonight, you drift gently into that hidden layer, the quiet, shimmering foundation from which all vibrations rise. You imagine yourself floating far above the earth, where the sky grows dark and the stars sharpen. At first, space looks like a pure void, smooth and silent. No air, no dust, no familiar ground. Just an expanse that stretches without end. But as you hover there, your inner vision softens, and you start to notice something subtle. The darkness is not perfectly black. It flickers ever so slightly, like a candle burning behind many layers of silk. The emptiness seems to quiver, as though it is breathing in its own slow rhythm. This is the quantum vacuum, not a hole, not a nothing, but the most fundamental something the universe has. Your mind drifts closer, and the darkness reveals its hidden motion. Particles appear for an instant, then vanish. Waves rise, then collapse back into stillness. The vacuum is alive with tiny fluctuations, tiny quivers of energy that never fully settle. It feels strange at first, to think of nothingness as restless. But the more you watch, the more natural it becomes. Still waters ripple. Quiet hearts beat. Even silence contains structure. The vacuum, too, has its own hum. You float inward toward one of these fluctuations, watching as it emerges from the void like a soft, temporary spark. It isn't a true particle, not something with permanent identity. It is a virtual particle, a quick borrowing of energy that the universe immediately repays. It lives for so little time that even calling it alive feels too grand. But these fleeting sparks matter. They create fields. They create forces. They create the subtle pressure that keeps atoms stable and light traveling. Your awareness widens. You see these fluctuations everywhere, appearing and dissolving like fine mist. Millions, billions, trillions of tiny tremors happening in every sliver of space you can imagine, between galaxies, inside atoms, between the electrons whirling around the nuclei of your cells. You realize, in a calming rush, that even the quietest place in existence cannot stop vibrating. There is no such thing as perfect stillness. There is only deeper and deeper motion. And somehow, this feels comforting. Your attention returns to your breath, which now feels like its own kind of fluctuation, a rise, a fall, a temporary swell of energy. And you sense how your body, too, exists in relation to a larger field. You are a ripple on the surface of a vast fabric, never separate from the space that surrounds you. Slowly, you descend into the quantum vacuum again, this time noticing a faint geometry beneath the fluctuations. It is not a rigid grid, not a tidy lattice like the solids you explored before. It is something softer, a woven field of possibilities, where each point throbs with the potential to become a particle, a wave, or nothing at all. This is the quantum field, the canvas from which the universe paints itself. The field is everywhere. It permeates your fingertips, your heartbeat, the air around you. Even the space inside atoms is mostly field, humming faintly with zero-point energy. Zero-point energy, the lowest possible energy level a system can have. Even at absolute zero, the field does not fall silent. You let that idea settle in your mind like a warm blanket. Even at the coldest, quietest, stillest limit the universe allows, something always remains. A shimmer. A whisper. A pulse. Not emptiness, persistence. You drift deeper into this field, letting its subtle tremor wash over you. The fluctuations feel rhythmic, though not in a musical way, more like a heartbeat too faint to hear but strong enough to feel. They remind you that every speck of matter arises from this invisible sea. The electron you imagine orbiting an atom? A vibration of the electron field. A small, precise signature in a deeper wave. The photon that warms your skin when sunlight touches you? A vibration of the electromagnetic field. A flash of energy rippling through the vacuum. Everything you see, touch, or know is a ripple. A note played on the strings of existence. You begin to feel the simplicity of this idea. Matter is not the universe's beginning. Vibration is. The universe sings first, and matter follows. Your awareness drifts to a new phenomenon rising gently out of the vacuum, the Casimir effect, a whisper of a force created purely by the fluctuations in empty space. Two uncharged metal plates placed very close together feel a tiny attraction, not because of magnetism, not because of gravity, but because the vacuum between them vibrates differently from the vacuum outside. Space presses. Space pulls. Space responds to its own motion. The idea feels delicate, like something you must hold with the softest mental touch. That empty space can create force. That nothingness can push on something. That the unseen can shape the seen. You recognize a similar truth inside yourself in the way unspoken feelings still shape your actions, in the way silence still communicates meaning, in the way quiet moments still move you. What appears empty often contains more than you expect. The universe works the same way. You float back now, drifting through the vacuum as gently as a leaf moving through still water. The fluctuations grow faint at this scale, a background tremble, steady and reassuring. It feels like breathing for the universe itself, a subtle oscillation that keeps reality awake. You sense how deeply everything depends on this hidden resonance. Without fluctuations, atoms wouldn't hold their shape. Electrons would collapse inward. Light could not travel. Stars could not burn. Life could not emerge. You, lying there in the quiet of your room, would not exist. All because the vacuum refuses to be silent. The thought settles warmly across your chest, a reminder that your existence rests not on solidity or certainty, but on gentle, persistent motion, the universe's most ancient rhythm. Slowly, you rise out of the vacuum again, lifting toward the scale of your everyday world. Your body becomes familiar again, your breath, your heartbeat, the soft weight of your limbs. But now you sense a subtle background hum beneath all of it, like the faintest vibration of a distant bell. Space is not empty. Space is alive. And you are held within its ceaseless trembling. As your consciousness drifts toward the next chapter, a quiet question forms at the edge of your thoughts, soft, glowing, irresistible. If empty space itself vibrates, what deeper harmony might lie beneath the fields that shape it? You settle once more into the gentle darkness behind your closed eyes, letting the world become soft around its edges. The room fades into a warm blur, and the steady rhythm of your breath becomes the quiet thread guiding you inward. You feel the familiar weight of your body resting, sinking, loosening, and the sense of stillness that follows spreads through you like a slow tide. In that softened space, you begin to wonder about something you have sensed for many chapters now. If the universe vibrates, if everything around you hums and resonates, then perhaps it is not only you who listens. Perhaps the universe listens as well. The thought is delicate at first, almost tentative. You let it drift toward you, a gentle breeze against your awareness. You are not imagining a universe with ears or intentions. Instead, you are imagining a universe shaped by responses. Every vibration influences another. Every motion creates a ripple. Every shift is felt, even if only in the most subtle way. The universe, in its immense silence, reacts to everything you do. And that reaction, that soft mutual shaping, is its way of listening. You take a slow breath, allowing that idea to settle. The air fills your lungs with a tender expansion, and with the exhale, a sense of release follows. You picture yourself as a point of energy resting on a vast, dark sea. Every breath you take sends out a faint wave across the surface. Every thought, every heartbeat, every tiny fluctuation inside you participates in the larger rhythm of existence. You are not separate from the universe's song, you are woven into it. As you linger in this thought, you imagine the quantum fields beneath every atom of your body. They tremble, pulse, adjust, and respond to what happens within you. They are not passive. They are dynamic, constantly shifting in relation to the world. The warmth of your body, the flow of your blood, the gentle firing of neurons in your mind, they all send subtle signals into the field, like notes played softly in a quiet room. The universe feels these vibrations in the same way a surface feels the approach of a raindrop. You picture the electromagnetic fields surrounding you, fields that extend invisibly into the room, brushing against walls, drifting through air, touching the faint glow of digital screens, the wiring in the walls, the dust in the corners. These fields do not end precisely at the boundary of your skin. They spread beyond you, where your presence becomes part of your surroundings. Everything within reach of your energy changes slightly by being near you. Even the smallest particle can alter the field around it. You, composed of trillions of particles, certainly do the same. In this quiet moment, you begin to understand that listening is not an action. It is a relationship. When you listen, you are influenced. When the universe listens, it changes in response. Every vibration you produce leaves a trace. Every motion, every thought, even the faint fluctuations of your cells join the tapestry that the larger cosmos responds to. Your presence is a note added to the symphony, whether you intend it or not. You let your mind drift toward gravity now, that quiet, gentle force that pulls without ever needing to announce itself. Gravity responds instantly to the distribution of energy everywhere. If a star collapses, gravity adjusts. If a galaxy shifts, gravity changes its shape. If you move your hand through the air, gravity updates its field around you. Every motion you make, no matter how small, is felt by space-time. Not dramatically, not noticeably, but undeniably. This is another kind of listening, the universe acknowledging your existence by reshaping itself, even if only by a whisper. You sense, perhaps for the first time, the profound intimacy of this idea. You are not a spectator of the universe. You are part of the structure that defines it. Your body curves space-time, minutely but genuinely. Your warmth releases infrared photons into the room, gently altering the distribution of energy. Your thoughts trigger electric signals through neural networks, creating measurable electromagnetic ripples. You are not a silent presence. You are always speaking, always participating, always in gentle conversation with everything around you. The thought becomes soothing, almost comforting. It removes any sense of isolation. Even in the quietest moments, you are still heard, not in a human sense, but in a physical one. The universe never ignores you because it cannot. Every bit of matter and energy affects every other bit, even across great distances, even across the stillness of night. You are part of an unbroken web of influence. You breathe again, slower this time, feeling your ribcage rise like a slow wave and fall like a settling tide. Inside your chest, your heartbeat continues its soft rhythm. Each pulse sends vibrations through blood and tissue. Those vibrations meet the quantum fluctuations deep inside every cell. They join the warmth that escapes from your skin. They ripple outward until they become part of the wider world. You imagine, for a moment, that your entire body is an instrument. Your bones resonate quietly. Your muscles hum with biochemical activity. Your thoughts flicker with electrical currents. Every part of you plays a tone so soft you can barely feel it. Yet the universe feels it. It absorbs it. It adapts to it. And that gentle exchange continues endlessly, whether or not you notice. As you sink deeper into this awareness, you begin to feel the boundaries of your body blur. You are still yourself, but the edges of you soften and expand. The air around you becomes part of your presence. The mattress beneath you becomes part of your influence. The space in the room, filled with faint background radiation and floating molecules, becomes part of your field of interaction. The universe listens to you, and you listen in return. Your attention drifts now to the stars far beyond your walls. Their light travels across unimaginable distances, carrying tiny imprints of their beginnings. When that light reaches you, your body receives it, absorbs it, warms slightly under it. Even starlight listens and responds. Even starlight changes when it touches you. And you, too, change when it touches you. The universe's great conversation continues on scales large and small. You can sense, in a quiet and grounding way, that your existence is not isolated from the cosmos. You are as much a participant as any star, any particle, any distant galaxy. The vibrations you emit, the warmth, the motion, the subtle fields, all become woven into the grand structure of reality. You are not asking the universe to hear you. You are simply being, and that being is enough to resonate everywhere. A feeling of stillness surrounds you, not the stillness of silence but the stillness of belonging. You do not need to speak, or act, or strive. Your presence alone shapes the space around you. Your body and mind contribute to the ever-shifting pattern of energy. You are part of the universe's ongoing memory. As you continue to rest in this awareness, a gentle question circles at the edge of your thoughts. If you are always vibrating, always resonating, always adding your tone to the cosmic fabric, then what kind of note do you create? What kind of presence do you add to the world? The question does not demand an answer. It simply invites you inward, into a place where you feel how your existence carries meaning in ways deeper than words. You settle again into your breath, letting its rhythm bring you back into your body. You feel the warmth of your chest, the softness of your limbs, the quiet surrender of your mind preparing for sleep. And in the stillness that follows, another thought appears, gentle and luminous. If the universe is a song made of countless vibrations, and if you are one of those vibrations, then perhaps the universe is not merely something you listen to, perhaps it is something you help create. And softly, you wonder, if the universe is listening back, what new harmony might arise when you listen in return?